world, but tonight you are here for one of the most average battles of the year. We have a three-way spectacular brawl for you coming live tonight on the Juby Scott channel. In this corner, we have at roughly 1,000 bugs fixed after its initial launch, and only the worst microtransaction store I have ever seen, Marvel's Avengers, the video game. And in this corner before me, we have a story that was so confusing that Warner Brothers themselves had to tell us it was not part of an actual universe already established, even on their FAQ page, and even mentioned it's not part of a TV show that apparently came out that is considered one of the worst of its kind. Will this also be one of the worst of its kind? Gotham Knights! And last but possibly least, depending on who wins this, we have our newest competitor from Rocksteady and Warner Brothers, the creators of Gotham Knights, whose universe is canon to the one that people thought Gotham Knights was part of. With possibly thousands of videos made on people hating this game or loving this game, it is truly in the middle and deserves to be part of this fight. Suicide Squad, kill the Justice League! Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're ready for a phenomenal night tonight, as we are having our very first, possibly only, Battle of Mid! Hello everybody, my name is Juby Scott and welcome to the Battle of Mid, where we are going to take three games that have been either controversial or messed up in what they're doing, or straight up just a bland game with nothing really much to add on. Today's contestants, we have Marvel's Avengers, Gotham Knights, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Without wasting any time, we're going to get right into these games, compare them all, and see who would actually win in this fight. Let's see who's the best mid-game.
Round 1. Fight!
Starting off with Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers story had a great opening, and essentially at the Battle of the Bridge, where you got to experience each Marvel character in a short little demo of how they play before you're stuck with Miss Marvel for the rest of the time. Marvel's Avengers basically has the Avengers are under attack, and then they are blamed for all the damage and possible death that happened. And because of that, they started getting outlawed or discontinued, basically civil war if they actually went through with the Sokovia Accords. After that is basically when you follow Miss Marvel throughout the story, trying to get the Avengers back together and trying to stop AIM. The story is what is considered the best part about Marvel's Avengers, aside from the gameplay, depending on who you ask. Me personally, it's the gameplay. But it felt like it relied too much on Miss Marvel. It was trying to, before the TV show came out, it was trying really hard to shove Miss Marvel down the player's throat as someone who, as people just wanted to play as the heroes that they fell in love with through the MCU, where you play the majority of it as Miss Marvel. Of course, when you start getting the team back together, you're able to choose the characters you want to play for each mission, which is showing you how the endgame stuff / multiplayer stuff is going to work out. I have heard that the story is pretty well liked, essentially, even with the over-inclusion of Miss Marvel or always playing Miss Marvel. That is not a bad thing to say about Miss Marvel, though. As you'll see when we get into the combat and endgame stuff, Miss Marvel is actually a pretty well-done character, and was actually one of Angry Joe's favorite to play in his review. Next up, we have Gotham Knights, which caused a lot of confusion in the beginning, because Batman is dead, and Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, and Red Hood are the ones that have to take over and essentially protect Gotham the way Batman could do on his own. As you're going through, you discover that Batman was investigating what is called the Court of Owls, an elite top 0.1% group of Gotham's finest who basically run everything from behind the scenes. The Court of Owls is a relatively new enemy in the last 30 years or so, and they quickly become a fan favorite. So seeing them in a video game as the main villain is such an exciting thing for DC comic fans. As you're going through, you get to play as any of the Gotham Knights that you want, And they all do actually play differently. And as you get deeper and deeper into learning about what Batman was investigating, the Court of Owls itself, the story does get interesting. The League of Shadows is involved, all that stuff, and even a great finale for the game that I agree with. So overall, Gotham Knight's story I do believe is generally good. Now we have Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, our newest contender for the mid-game battles. And Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League story has been hated on a lot more than the other two. The story goes that Amanda Waller is asking of Harley Quinn, Deadshot, King Shark, and Captain Boomerang to basically volunteer themselves to be part of the Suicide Squad, Task Force X. Brainiac has invaded the world and is starting with Metropolis, taking over Green Lantern, Flash, Superman, and Batman. With some assistance of Wonder Woman, the Suicide Squad has been tasked to kill the Justice League. And as you go through, you meet with them, you interact with them, and for some people, the interactions are good. For most people, these interactions are horrible. The biggest thing I've heard is that everyone tries to shoot the Flash, which should be basically impossible. Now, we've heard a brief description of the stories of these three games. Which one do you think comes out on top? I will definitely say the first one that I would eliminate, honestly, would be Suicide Squad's story. While I do believe all three stories are interesting personally, Suicide Squad's story was less. After the first initial half where you meet all the villains, you see Green Lantern captures you, you see Green Lantern fight the Flash a little bit, you get knocked out by Batman as if you're an Arkham villain from the Arkham games, but after that, it kind of just slows down. It really turns into the looter shooter more than story first. So I would essentially say Suicide Squad is knocked out first. Now when it comes to Marvel's Avengers versus Gotham Knights, this is where it's going to get bias versus what the population thinks. A lot of people enjoy the Marvel's Avengers story. I do agree. And while I like both of them, I'm honestly going to say I feel like Gotham Knights has a better story than Marvel's Avengers. And I would only say just by a little bit, because seeing the Avengers finally get back together, seeing their side content in the story technically, it is all good and well. Like you're seeing Black Widow. She stole funds from AIM to help people that got hurt in the Battle of the Bridge, who got mutated by what happened on there. You see Bruce trying to keep his calm and his cool, but everyone's irritating him because he doesn't want to be the Hulk. You see Iron Man being his normal self, especially when you first meet him. What a great interaction. But the story takes a back seat, a little slower than Suicide Squad, for the endgame looter shooter, for showing you how it's going to work for the rest of the game. Once the story's done, this is what you have. Gotham Knights sticks with the story through the entire game. The endgame content, which was originally just the city patrols, leveled up with you, and you could always do those whether you were doing the story or not. And then once the Hero Force came out, that was a completely separate thing. So the story got to really shine, and I also thought the story was interesting. Seeing how each of the members of the Bat family cope with the loss of Batman, seeing how Alfred interacts with each of these members, and then seeing how they handle the Court of Owls and the stuff that happens in the end. It's all really well done. For as much crap that Gotham Knights got, I will definitely say the story is very, very enjoyable, and Gotham Knights takes the win in the story section.
Round 2. Fight!
But what's a good story without some good gameplay to keep you invested in the parts without dialogue? We're moving on to combat, ladies and gentlemen. And for combat, we are going to start off with Suicide Squad. Considered the most boring combat gameplay of the three, probably, because it is simple. If you're expecting the Arkham gameplay of free flow combat, you are going to be sorely mistaken, unfortunately. While this game is a shooter and there is nothing wrong with that, when I saw the trailers of gameplay, I thought there was going to be a lot more melee stuff involved. But unfortunately, melee is just a one-tap button that breaks the enemy's armor and then allows you to shoot at them. Your melee does do damage, but nowhere near as fast or as heavy as you actually just shooting the enemies. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is literally just shoot the bad guys, hit them to break the shield, shoot the bad guys more. Of course, each character has their special ability and traversal. Deadshot with his jetpack and then launching a bunch of cluster grenades. King Shark with his Hulk traversal and being able to slam down in a ball that kills everything in sight. Harley Quinn with her grapple hook and with her grapple hook kick. They really couldn't think of anything better for her, the explosives person. And then Captain Boomerang having the coolest one, basically running around like the Flash, hitting people over and over again. They also have their signature strikes, which are awesome, cool little cutscenes, except for Deadshot's. Listen, I know the guy's all about guns and his wrist guns, but you're telling me you couldn't let him get in close like a punch and then a shoot or something? Nope, he's just going to sit there and float, and he'll float in like 3 different animations. So I will definitely say, without even looking at the other two, combat-wise, Suicide Squad's out immediately. Not even a chance against the other 2 games. Now we are back with Gotham Knights vs. Marvel's Avengers. I promise this was not planned. This one's a little tricky though, because they are the same, but also different. So let's start with Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights is their take on, I believe, free flow combat. It reminds me of the Arkham games, but nowhere near as polished. Instead of having counterattacks, your character will simply just dodge. And then have maybe a follow-up. But the follow-ups are like all the same for them. Like Red Hood will backhand them with the pistol, and then Nightwing will just hit them with the baton. Robin will do something similar, and so will Batgirl with her baton. And then the attacks, because this is like a looter fighter, but like more of a looter, like where your gear matters and stuff like that, the enemies will not go down as quick as, for say, the Arkham games or stuff like that. These enemies have health bars, and you need to wail on them a couple times. My biggest complaint about that is sometimes these enemies will not react to your hits, which is it's very strong to just ignore that. Like, I understand that they're charging an unblockable and you don't want that animation to get ruined by me jabbing at them, but it can be really awkward, especially coming from other games that have perfected combat and stuff like that. Marvel's Avengers has this problem too, so don't worry, they're not getting a freebie on that as well. But something about Gotham Knights' combat, when this was first revealed, it looked so slow when they did the Nightwing and the Red Hood reveal. And honestly, it carried. Is it faster than what they showed? Absolutely, yes. There's timed attacks that make you feel a lot more smooth and stuff like that. But overall, the combat is definitely slower than what we got in Arkham Knight. And I understand that this is made by a different developer, but if you see something's getting good, why would you want to go back? You would want to improve on what someone else did. At least that's my opinion. So I will definitely say Gotham Knights is I would say it's next. Marvel's Avengers, however, the reason that I believe it should be on top is because of how different each characters are. Gotham Knights, yes, each character is different, but each character has a light attack, a heavy attack, and range, and they all do the same thing for each character. Marvel's Avengers will have light attacks, signature attacks, and heavy attacks, all different animations, majority, we'll get into that, than compared to Gotham Knights. With over 7 characters in Marvel's Avengers being playable, it's very hard for the other two to even compete. For example, Captain America's heavy attacks will be using his shields. Iron Man will be either using his repulsor beams, his lasers, or his missiles. So already a different variety there. Hulk will start slamming on the ground to create shockwaves compared to Black Widow just hitting them with her batons in a different way. Or even Miss Marvel, her light attacks would use one hand, her heavy attacks would use both hands, enlarged of course, compared to Hawkeye just swinging his sword differently for his heavy attacks. Like I said, as more characters got added, the problem with Marvel's Avengers is that they started to add what was considered like, I forget the word that they called it, but it was like copycat heroes. The worst example, and I have an old video about it, is Thor versus the Mighty Thor. Literally the same character, except for 2 different things. Their ultimates and their light chains. That was the only difference between those 2 characters. And I still think it's crazy that people defended this 2 years later. Along with that, Gotham Knights versus Marvel's Avengers, they each have their different abilities. Gotham Knights soars in this area because not only are there the standard abilities for each button on the controller, There's also, if you hold it down, you have an additional set of abilities that you can access as well. They also have their ultimates, Red Hood shooting like a ghost bullet that bounces around, Batgirl calling in her drone, stuff like that. Versus Marvel's Avengers, each character has 3 different abilities, but I will say I feel like they're a lot more useful compared to the 8 in Gotham Knights. The Gotham Knights ones are cool, but there are some that I just generally don't find any use for doing them. Whereas in Marvel's Avengers, I do find a use for these characters' abilities all the time. So yeah, at this point, I would definitely say when it comes to combat, if you're looking for a game with good combat, unfortunately you can't buy Marvel's Avengers anymore, it's delisted. I would say Marvel's Avengers is definitely taking this side.
Round 3. Fight!
Gotham Knights winning on story, Marvel's Avengers winning on combat, and Suicide Squad winning with nothing so far. Will they come up? We will find out. So on to the next part, the loot. All of these games are looters. 2 are looter fighters, 1 is a looter shooter. How do they compare? Are any of them good? Well, if I could, I would say none of these are good, because honestly their loot is horrible, which is what makes these games mid. Let's start with the top, Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers loot is useful if you read on what it does, but the fact that this loot does not change the way these people look was such an irritation for a lot of people when this game first came out. Essentially, it's just a bunch of numbers games, or, for example, I have this thing where if Captain America blocks an attack, he will then have a rocket shoot out of his back randomly and attack the enemy and launch them in the air. I couldn't tell you which part of loot I have that does that, but it works. But I have it, apparently. Other things I would say would be basically there's like three different types of things to like affect your weapons. There's vibranium, I think adamantium is in the game, but then gas and stuff like that. A bunch of them. It's been a long time. Even when I played this game, even when I played this game to get footage, I didn't even pay attention to it. Because it just doesn't matter. The thing that mattered the most in Marvel's Avengers was just getting your gear score up. So anytime you got new loot, you would just hit a button on your controller and it would automatically put in the highest level tier loot you have. And then you just go about and keep going to get more high level loot. So while the Marvel's Avengers seemed useful, it was very forgetful, I'm going to be honest. Gotham Knights is basically the same way, but they add numbers to the system. And their stuff can also get affected. This is a lot more standard with elementals, fire, ice, gas, smoke, etc. Now, when they use a number system, it's a lot easier. They use a number system, but in the terms of, like, value, not just rank. Like, Marvel's Avengers is the rank of a gear, like, level 40 was the highest. Gotham Knights uses, like, oh, this gear is, like, 3,000 level or something like that. I couldn't really explain it, I'm going to be 100% honest. And while the gear doesn't change the way they look in this game either, you do have access to free cosmetics, transmogs, that you're able to change your look to. But also, if you put on a new suit, you can customize sections of that suit to kind of make it a little more unique. You have like 3 different options for your symbol, gloves, boots, and your mask. And then all the colorways look great. Obviously, there's some that I would never use, but they all look good with their costumes, I'm going to be honest. Marvel's Avengers issue was it was just all cosmetic, and it was all pricey as hell. Whereas Gotham Knights, you got the costumes after you bought the game and completed a challenge or 2. Plain and simple. But when it comes to the loot, it's like I said, just very, very much the same as Marvel's Avengers. And you're never going to believe this, but so is Suicide Squad. But Suicide Squad is more related to Marvel's Avengers, because their loot also doesn't change the way they look, except for their guns and melee weapons. They will change, but you have no customization of them besides changing the elemental with Poison Ivy by going to see her and changing it from fire, ice, gas, etc. So it's a step back from Gotham Knights being allowing you to change a little bit of the costumes, but a step forward from Marvel's Avengers, because in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, you're able to go into the character itself and change parts of their outfit. The problem is you can't mix and match depending on the categories, which is the weirdest thing ever to me. and they're very limited right now. I understand this game just came out, but 2 different outfits per section? That is ridiculous, dude. Really? So, Suicide Squad is very, very limited right now. But I kind of like what they're doing. When it comes to the actual combat loot, though, the reason you get your points up, they also follow the same as Gotham Knights. Just, super high numbers. 10,000 points or 20,000 shield, etc. That seems more forgetful than Marvel's Avengers. At least then I'll look into those and read them. The Suicide Squad ones just really, I don't know, they're really forgetful. All I care about is I will put on the higher gear level, and then you'll look at your melee weapon or your gun to see if it has an affliction on it, which is very obvious if it's fire, gas, stuff like that. So I'm going to be honest, all these looter games, they all suck when it comes to loot, so it's really hard for me to want to put this in a category. But if I had to, and I'm kind of shocked saying this, but sitting here thinking, I think Marvel's Avengers wins on the loot section, which is very weird to say. I just wanted to add this part in real quick. If anyone thinks the reason that Marvel's Avengers is winning or I'm favoring them more is because the game's been out longer than Suicide Squad, that is not the case. The gear system has not changed since the game came out. All they've done is added new gear like Vibranium to get of that sort, but they never reworked gear or anything of that sort, so it's still fair to compare to Suicide Squad. But yeah, I'm going to have to actually say, I think Marvel's Avengers wins this. And then for second place, who would be up? I actually had to take a second to pause and think about this, but I think in second place, still standing in the ring, would be Suicide Squad. Because like I said, you can see the afflictions of what your weapons have on you, and the numbers pop up more, but that's also because of its UI. I don't know. Something is telling me that Suicide Squad would be second and Gotham Knights would be last. Which is funny to me because loot in Gotham Knights is so important. If you are underpowered, you are going to feel it. Whereas you can kind of get away with it in the other games, at least from my personal experience. But I'm going to be honest, I know we care about who wins, but for second place, I think I'm going to say Suicide Squad. Which means Gotham Knights would be in last. Mostly because of their stupid mod chits, which literally, apparently they do stuff, but they literally all look the same, and it's just something you're going to equip on. You're going to take the highest level and just equip it to make your stuff better. Literally boring, literally, that I think is the laziest thing that a looter shooter has done.
Round 4. Fight!
We are coming down to the final round. Marvel's Avenger leading by 2, Gotham Knights by 1, and Suicide Squad still with nothing. Is this game as bad as people are telling me? Especially since my latest video. Probably, that's why we're doing this video. The last thing to talk about for a game like these are the end game. And oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. We're going to go ahead and start with the newest one, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, because honestly, when I was told the end game was fun. And to a degree, it is, but after about an hour, I haven't touched the game since. The Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. After, spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't played this, but it's in the name. Okay, there's your spoiler warning. After you kill the Justice League, you do fight Brainiac in the end. It's a ripoff of Flash's. It's literally a repeat of the Flash battle, who's the first person you fight. Which I get what he was trying to do, like showing like, oh, I can be all the heroes that you guys have killed. I can still beat you. Would have been cooler if he actually was like Flash and then like would turn into Superman, turn into Batman. I don't know how he would do that with how Batman's boss fight works, but that's something they would figure out, not me. It would have been cooler if he did that or had all three together, if that would have somehow worked. But nope, it's literally just a repeat of the Flash, because in the end game, there's apparently 13 Brainiacs that you have to fight. One for each season. See how they did that there? Now you have to come back and come kill Brainiac. As of right now, we know in March, when we get Joker, we are going to have to kill number 12 Brainiac. Oh boy, I can't wait for it to just be the Superman fight again. But before you can go and kill Brainiac, you have to get this green pea crafting source material to be able to even go into the multiverse to fight to take over Earth 2 Brainiac. I'm trying to explain that. It's actually really difficult. I don't know why we keep going to Earth 2. Apparently we're going to Earth 2 to actually like stop him from taking over, but he already took over. What is the point of this endgame? So either way, you go to Earth 2 to stop some stuff. The problem with that is it's the same 3 missions every single time. Defending Toy Box's truck, getting Poison Ivy's plants to grow, and then just going there to stop a bunch of Brainiac's generators doing something. I don't even know anymore. And while I do like the last one the most because it seems the most interactive and you can just go in there guns blazing and I enjoy doing that one. The other 2 I have no interest in doing whatsoever. And yet it costs these P materials to go in there and do them, which by the way, I have plenty. But if you don't have plenty, you have to go into the free roam and do Toy Box missions, Poison Ivy missions, and stopping the generators. Are you hearing what I'm saying here? It's the same 3 missions. I thought people were not kidding, but like over exaggerating. It is seriously the same 3 missions. I understand this is a live service game, but you're going to see the other 2 contenders have more than this, and you're the newest game. That is insane. But yeah, Suicide Squad, look, I defended this in a video. I had fun when I played it, but Suicide Squad got fucking destroyed in this. Didn't win a single tier. Let's move on to Let's move on to Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers Endgame is a little unfair to fight against Suicide Squad. Maybe in a couple months it would be more fair. But as of Suicide Squad right now versus Marvel's Avengers right now, it's not even a fucking contest. Marvel's Avengers had free content uploaded because they were supported by the horrible price microtransaction store, so they were able to release free seasonal content. This is how we got Kate Bishop, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Mighty Thor, and the Winter Soldier. We're not here to talk about the actual DLCs, we're talking about the missions. So, the missions are, like I said, slightly better than Suicide Squad, but like, you don't just go to one area every time like you do in Suicide Squad. You can go to Wakanda, you go to the northern states, you go to the winter area, you go to an actual, like, city and stuff like that. And you go in there, you complete a bunch of objectives, or there's even smaller options where it's just like one thing, like hold the area, it's really quick, grab your gear, go. So they give you like a long option, which you'll get better loot or more loot, and then they give you like short, quick options. And honestly, they're all okay. If you sit here and like grind the game all day, you are absolutely going to get bored. But you will get bored of it a lot slower than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League Endgame. There's different mission objectives. There's assassinating targets. There's freeing civilians. You have to do a bunch of that stuff in one mission altogether. Holding an objective. There is more. They're all pretty bland still. Remember, Battle of Mid. But there are different options. So when it comes to Suicide Squad versus Marvel's Avengers, it's not even a competition. Suicide Squad is gone compared to them. But where does that leave Gotham Knights? Well, But where does that leave Gotham Knights? Gotham Knights is simply right in the middle. So Gotham Knights, even though I'm putting it in the Battle of Mid, it was not considered a live service game. As much as people wanted it to be, including me, because I wanted more content. But they did do something nice for us. Yes, the end game was basically patrolling Gotham, completing side objectives and stuff like that. But you can do all that in the story as well. So they added Heroic Assault Mode. And this is where they brought in a new enemy. Unfortunately, it was Starro. You don't actually fight Starro because he's just in a container and you just escort him out of there and then you just win apparently. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Heroic Assault Mode is basically you go through each floor. It's like a roguelike, but not, because if you die, you don't lose everything. You go through each floor, and during each floor, you get better gear if you complete it, so that you're able to do the next floor. And there's 30 floors of it. And remember, none of this was announced until like a month before the game came out, along with the 30 FPS issue, but that's besides the point. So the fact that we got some endgame content to level up more and keep people entertained was awesome. Not only that, it added 4-player co-op. Gotham Knights was originally just 2-player co-op with the story and city. Heroic Assault mode added 4-player, and you could play as any of the characters. But yeah, it was simply you go in there, defending a generator, turning off bombs, or just straight up defeating like 4 waves of enemies. And these got hard, I'm going to be 100% honest. These definitely got hard. It's to the point where, unfortunately, Gotham Knights is dead, that I actually can't complete the second Heroic Assault mode. Speaking of that, they added another Heroic Assault mode. And this one I like, and unfortunately I can't play it all the way. But it's basically the same floors again, only it's 20 floors, I believe. And you go and fight the side bosses again. Harley Quinn, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, and stuff like that. The boss fights in this game are easily awesome. I actually genuinely enjoy them. The reason we didn't have a boss fight section is because Marvel's Avengers didn't have any bosses except for MODOK. Gotham Knights only has like 3 of them, and Suicide Squad only has 3 of them, and they're all bad. But I'll quickly add a bonus section here. Out of all the boss fights, Gotham Knights wins that. So Gotham Knights gets another win. A small one compared to the others. But yeah, like all of this just came out. We didn't know this was coming. So it was nice of them that they did this. So that's why I want to put it right in the middle. This was not something we were expecting, but man, was it welcomed. Like the fact that you added 4-player co-op in a game that everyone thought was going to be 4-player. It was a nice like farewell. Unfortunately, the game is basically dead now. So with that being said, we have a clear winner on who is the best mid-game. And of all games that I thought it was going to be, I genuinely came into this thinking it was going to be Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. But no, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League came in dead last. They got hit with a chair and fell down and didn't get back up. I am genuinely shocked. Second place, I'm not shocked because, second place, I'm not shocked because Gotham Knights is like a very good definition of mid. Like, it's not a bad game, but it was what nobody was expecting at the time. We were really expecting another Arkham game. But it did stuff right. Do I think it's underrated? No, not really. Like, every time I try to play it after doing all the stuff that I've done in it, it's kind of hard to stay in. Whereas I can still go back into Suicide Squad. And honestly, when I was getting footage from Marvel's Avengers, I was actually enjoying it because it's been like 7 months since I touched it. So yeah, Gotham Knights being in the middle, I like it. It's a good spot for it. And then the winner of being the most mid-game that I have, Marvel's Avengers, was actually a shock. I thought, honestly, this was going to be at the bottom. But going back to see all the content they added, all the stuff that actually like works together, how all the characters play, every single character is unique. Even if it's the same buttons doing attacks, it's all different animations, kinda. Except for the clone heroes, which would be the Mighty Thor and Hawkeye. To a degree, the Winter Soldier as well, but the Winter Soldier had enough differences that I actually enjoy it. He was the hardest to see. It was mostly his light chain. But yeah, with Marvel's Avengers, if you are looking for a mid-tier game, apparently my winner is Marvel's Avengers, which you can't buy anymore. Which leads me to the one more thing I want to tell you before you end this video. Marvel's Avengers is delisted. Unfortunately, you cannot buy this game anymore, and if you own it, Gotham Knights is still readily available, but unfortunately the player count seems to have plummeted. And then Suicide Squad is brand new, and they're just kicking off their first season in March. So unfortunately, if you are looking for a mid-game, your best bet right now would be Suicide Squad, unless you have access to Marvel's Avengers. But Gotham Knights and Marvel's Avengers have already played their courses, so they are either dead or slowly dying. So at this point, unfortunately, your best bet would be Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Does that mean they suddenly win? Absolutely not. But none of us win, because this was the Battle of Mid. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next week.